Okay, so here are the rails, and here is our show.
Completely off. Completely gone today. What in the world? Derailed.
Yay, you're here. Welcome to the CK and GK podcast. Let's get going.
You guys laughing is pretty funny.
Hi.
Hello, it's Tuesday.
It wouldn't be Tuesday without Jenny singing It's Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here. Welcome back. Last week, we gave you guys all kinds of information about how to speak baseball, or at least how to understand someone who does speak baseball. And we're going to be putting that information to the test today. But before we do, she's Jenny, aka November, whose bangs are cute, office weirdo, and girl who loves garbage. She'll put gum in your coat pockets. It's April Ludgate, everyone, from Parks and Recreation.
Because it's March 31st?
You're welcome.
That's one of my favorite episodes. That's a real day.
Such a good one. She didn't
Wait.
think it was a real thing.
I scheduled 300 meetings for March 31st because I thought it was
97 meetings.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Leslie's like, oh, let's schedule 3 more so we can get to an even 300, and then leaves for the day. It's so good. Yeah.
Well, last week, in addition to talking about baseball vocabulary, we found out that I am Gen X. So today I have an intro full of old references.
Let's hear it.
I have the Jerry Seinfeld to my George Costanza, the Norm to my Cliff, and of course the donut glaze to my fried fish. It's Caitlin.
Oh, I don't ever want to be donut glaze on fried fish. I'm good. I promise.
I mean, if you have to be one of the two, wouldn't you rather be the donut glaze?
That's true. You can be the fried fish.
And if you're not laughing at this, it's because you didn't hear about my pregnancy cravings.
Right.
When we talked a couple weeks ago.
And you're probably thankful that you didn't hear about her pregnancy cravings from a couple weeks ago. Gross. Anyway, I want to give a couple of shout outs to a few podcasts that have been really fun to listen to and or interact with this week. So one of them is a Playlist Wars. If you haven't listened to them, this is a great podcast and these guys really know their stuff. Playlist Wars did an episode on the Foo Fighters before the passing of Taylor Hawkins, the Foo Fighters drummer. And it is a really, really nice listen and super fun to kind of think about those songs as I'm listening to those guys talk about it. So we also get a couple of shout outs in there. So thanks for the shout outs, Playlist Wars.
Caitlin sent it to me and I'm not ready to listen.
No,
I had a really hard time with this one.
Yeah.
We were laying in bed Friday night and John's doing his final scroll before bed. And he said, oh my God, Taylor died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Saturday morning, we just listened to Foo Fighters all day. And finally, after a couple hours, I looked at myself. I think we need to turn this off. I think I'm too sad.
Yeah, it's not the same for sure.
No.
So, and again, the episode aired before that happened. Rest in peace, Taylor Hawkins. We love you, and it won't be the same. But it is a great episode, and we did get some shout outs on there, which was pretty cool. Also, thank you to the 80s Movie Podcast for sharing the love of your cat Joyce. Some of our listeners know that my cat passed away on Saturday, and it's been a really rough week with that, but 80s Movie Podcast was really quick to offer some love and condolences, and I'm sure Joyce was a beautiful little girl. She was very sweet looking in the pictures. And one quick thank you to our guest today. My father-in-law is here with us. It's Mike Capps. Mike, you going to join us?
I'm going to unmute. I'm not a child of the, what are you guys a child of? The 80s, 90s?
Born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, except Jenny, who was raised in the 1970s, apparently.
Perhaps. It's very possible.
Wow.
She's got some pretty intense Gen X tendencies. She's definitely an 80s kid at heart, you can tell. I was not. I'm a 90s kid for sure.
It's all that time I spent abroad.
Speaking of abroad, why are you so tan? What is going on? You look so tan right now. And I cannot understand why we just lie out in the sun, during your teaching days.
I was outside all weekend. And then yesterday, this was so great. I had the opportunity to serve my community.
Oh, cool.
As a juror.
Not as cool. No thanks on jury duty. I'm good.
No, it was great. It was great. I was dismissed within an hour. So I felt like I did my part. I was there. I was in the initial pool and then I was dismissed.
Oh, they love teachers too, man. Every time I've had jury duty, I've been called. And the only reason I got out of the second time around was because the judge was a former teacher. And he says, is there any reason why you shouldn't be here? And I was like, I've got 25 parent-teacher conferences, which was not a lie. It was the truth. I had parent-teacher conferences and I raced my happy butt over to the school and did parent-teacher conferences after jury duty that morning. Otherwise, I would have stayed because they were keen on having me. It was awful.
Well, I did not.
Yeah, lucky you.
My call was 1:00. And so by 2:00, I'm done. Oh. And I called John on the way home and said, hey, if I pick up Kit, I think he's still napping. It's a little early. You want me to just come home? He said, oh yeah, come home and we'll go play disc golf. So we spent the day out in the sun yesterday afternoon. It was great.
Well, you're super tan right now and I'm not, I'm like really, really jealous. Like I'm not okay with how tan you are because it looks great. You look very healthy.
It'll last for another couple hours.
My tans usually take a couple of hours to develop because I spray them on and or rub them on the and I end up smelling like banana for a while. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started and we won't keep Cappy waiting because I'm sure he's probably like, I have no interest in this conversation about these girls' spray tans right now.
Spray tans, no, but judges and juries, I got a story to tell you about a great
Go for it.
Let's hear it.
All right. So I'm a young police beat reporter in the city of Houston at age 23, right? And one of our photographers had taken photos of video at a murder scene of one of the most gruesome you could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. The victim was a big time oil magnate in Houston. The photographer, videographer, they call him now, that we've moved up in import with what we call people.
Truth.
I'm a baseball broadcaster, right? An ex-CNN correspondent. I could say I'm a journalist.
Titles matter.
This videographer is called in. Check this out, ladies. Neither the defense nor the prosecution realizes that he is the fellow that brought the video of the scene onto the air at the NBC affiliate in Houston in the 1970s.
Oh.
This is a huge trial. 3 weeks of voir dire, right?
Wow.
A rainy Friday afternoon. Everybody is smoked. This is the third week.
Mm-hmm.
So they get down to this fellow and they say, Mr. Blah, 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 is there any reason in the world that you can't render a fair and just verdict or whatever the hell it is? And he says, well, I'm going to tell you how it is. Everybody knows the SOB killed him. So, and so the judge is left like, ha, 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 and clears the courtroom. 2 weeks later, they restart voir dire. They have to get everybody out.
Oh no!
Starts all over. And this fellow is still a friend of mine, and he still shows up at our reunions. And he just laughs about it. He thinks that's the funniest thing that ever happened to him in the world.
I mean, you tainted the whole thing. 3 weeks of jury selection. He completely destroyed.
Can you imagine the hours these people put in questioning these potential jurors? And some of them are really great, and some of them are idiots. And the real idiot turns out to be the videographer.
I mean,
but the real idiots are the prosecution and the district attorney because they never bothered to ask him what he did for a living.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
No, I've been there. I've been on a jury. I've been through the whole selection. And I remember looking at this woman who was about to stand trial, and she looks me dead in the face and goes, I want her on my jury. And I was like, crap, this is bad. and I'll be a monkey's uncle if I wasn't there until 10:30 or something that night. It was horrible. They were like, you can come back tomorrow. And I was like, no, I can't. I'm a teacher. I have another job. I can't just come back tomorrow. This is horrible. Let's just go. So yeah, I
Well,
remember watching that process.
Cappy has 3 secrets of how to avoid jury duty. I'll do them on the next time you have me on the show.
Yeah, that sounds
oh my
great.
gosh,
I'm sure
nice.
our listeners are going to want to know.
Nice. This is good. This
Oh,
is
It's
yeah.
helpful. I swear to you, it's helpful. I'm saving those secrets for later.
Yeah, save them.
I like
You
it.
Save them. Okay.
So I was dismissed within an hour, right?
Yeah.
And so later that afternoon, I called my principal and said, it's a capital case. and I'm going to be sequestered for a month.
Did your principal panic? Because I would.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I only let her hang for a few seconds. And I said, no, just kidding. I'll be back tomorrow.
Oh.
If I'd been your principal, I'd have killed you right there and then.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our circle time where we talk about exactly news things that you need to know. So let's start with sports. Jenny, do you have any sports for the week you want to talk about?
Yeah. After some owners' negotiations, the NFL is going to change how they do overtime in the playoffs. Oh, what are we doing? Oh, we're playing the tiniest violin ever because you're not sorry at all. Yes. Okay. Okay. So if the game is tied up at the end of the regular play time, it goes into overtime. But to find out what team is going to get the ball, they do a coin toss.
Yeah.
And it's sudden death. And
Yeah,
so
stupid.
if you win the coin toss, you take the ball and you score, you just won the game.
Yeah, it's dumb.
There's some thought to if you win the coin toss, you actually just won the game. And so why do we even play the other 4 quarters? Just flip the coin and see who's going into the next round of the playoffs. So they've changed the rule for the playoffs only that both teams will get to possess the ball unless the first team to possess the ball gets a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
Okay.
It's similar to how college ball is played. I'm not totally against it. It comes from some whining that happened last season, but that's I think it makes sense to give everybody a chance, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just the way that the sudden death coin toss thing is dumb. It's unfair. So I can support this change. Now if they can just extend it to the rest of the season, I'll be fine with that. So
yeah.
I'm also going to talk some football. There's this rule in football where the NFL coaches have to equally represent people of color. So right now they're changing this rule. It's called the Rooney Rule. They're changing it so that the NFL is going to require all of its teams to hire a minority or a female offensive assistant coach for the 2022 season. This is a big deal. There's a lot of criticism over the diversity of the upper ranks of football. Football is a sport that has people of all colors in it. It should be represented up in the coaching staff as far as I'm concerned. It also says that this Rooney Rule that requires a team to interview at least 2 external minority candidates for open head coaching positions will expand to provide more opportunities for women to secure front office roles. So we're making steps in football. Nothing is perfect yet, but there's at least an effort being made, which I can support.
So I have a really dumb question.
Yeah.
Why must they hire someone in an offensive assistant?
This is a great question, and I'm going to probably put my foot in my mouth here.
Because if you remember from our football episodes,
yes,
there are coaches that lead offense, defense, and special teams.
Yes, thank you. My understanding is that it is the offensive coaching that is less well represented by people of color.
I see. Okay. All right.
That is the way that I interpreted that. And if I'm wrong, sorry. You didn't come here. You didn't come here for the hardest of facts. So it is what it is. But that's my understanding, that that's the side that is less well represented.
If you go back to the original Latin, then...
Okay, so what else is going on do we have any gems this week? Anything ridiculous or amazing that happened for you this week?
This is not even a whole story. Okay.
Okay.
This is just a sentence.
Okay.
Yesterday, I was behind a construction van, and the name of the company was Rent a Man. That's all. That's all. That's the only thing I can say.
I'm sorry. What?
Right?
Wait just a minute. Wait a minute. You don't do one sentence on Rent a Man.
Right? Silver platter. Take your choice.
Well,
Right.
it reeks of reverse sexism.
Right?
It kind of does. Yeah. It feels very like mail order bride. It feels inappropriate.
Mail order
You know,
something.
mail order something. It feels wrong. It, it feels like a man pillow, a pillow shaped like a man to make a throwback to
Yikes.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Her pillow
I
was
was like,
Daniel Craig.
I would not name my business Rent a Man.
It's incredibly intentional. They did it on purpose.
I mean,
They
we're
know
talking
what
about
they're
them.
doing. Right. They know what they're doing.
I just gave them free advertising.
They are not a sponsor. Do not talk about them anymore.
Just to show you how cheap and tawdry I am. I could use another couple of radio sponsors on Express Broadcasts.
Yeah.
Are you gonna call Rent a
Are you
Man?
gonna call Rent a Man?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because I know a couple of guys I'd rent out.
I know a couple of guys I'd pay for.
Yikes. That wasn't the way I was heading in that direction, but Karen told me you guys have a lot of fun. I didn't believe it.
So I have some ridiculousness for you. My next door neighbor has a boat, and this boat has been parked in like a pad next to his driveway for years, and he's never had an issue.
31 that I know of.
Yeah, the city inspectors came, somebody ratted him out, and he got in trouble for not having it behind a fence. So long story short, in order to just make peace, he builds a small fence, and he was worried that it was going to be blocking our view of the street. It's really not. It's no big deal. Honestly, I've driven past the house every day for the past few years and never even noticed the boat. So whatever, right? Like I don't notice the fence now. Not a big deal. Well, Sam, seeing our neighbor building a fence, all of a sudden goes, he's on the roof and now he's lying on it, bro, and like starts screaming at the window at our neighbor, like, you're not supposed to be up there, just screaming at him. And I'm like, first of all, he can't hear you, and second of all, say that again, because I need to record this, because the screaming was just so funny. It sounded like in Hook, like Rufy, oh, and that's how he's screaming, bro, like over and over again. I think it was like probably 3 or 4 minutes of him screaming bro at our neighbor, and my son is 5.5 and he's calling our neighbor who's middle-aged bro. So that was something that entertained me. But then today, you know this, we've talked about this before, I am not a big drinker by any means. I will have a glass of wine a couple times a week, and I rarely drink it like with an early dinner or anything like that. Like it's just not a thing. I don't really I get up really early. I don't really like how I feel the next day after a bunch of glasses of wine, so I don't really do that. Well, today I decided that I would like to have a glass of wine, and it was a small one. I was just finishing off a bottle that had been in the fridge for like a few days or whatever. And my son looks at me and gives me like the stink eye, and he goes, "Drinking already?" I'm sorry, 5-year-old child. Yes, I am having a glass of wine. He was like, okay. And then just turns away from me.
Wow.
I'm like, what just happened?
Let me interject a grandfather. This is not to be unexpected. He is the seventh of seven grandchildren. And so
Yes.
I have seen this repeated in spades with the other 6. And I would just tell you, he's almost 6 years old, and hang with him. But you got to admire it, because the bottom line is he's like Cappy in that he's going to get into a lot of trouble because he says what he thinks.
Yeah.
I wish I had a nickel for every trouble I've encountered for being that way. I'd be rich. I wouldn't even have to be on this show to make money.
You're making money on the
Yeah,
show?
exactly. If you're on the show making money, we need to have a conversation in private.
I knew that'd wake both of you up.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, well, so your son looks at you, side eyes, and says, drinking already? Mine picks up a glass of water that I'm drinking and says, does this have alcohol in it?
Cheers.
Oh.
It doesn't matter what I'm drinking. He assumes that it's booze.
We had a friend who her daughter used to call Scotch Daddy Wawa. So, all right. Well, anything that you're currently obsessed with and have to share with our listeners right now?
Do you know what I'm obsessed with?
Rent-A-Man construction business. No, I'm wrong. Okay.
I may or may not have jotted the number down. Emphasis on the may not. No, I am obsessed with my shower.
Oh, yay. Is it done?
It is done.
Yes.
I mean, it is medium done.
Oh. Sad.
Because
okay.
First off, for those of you who don't know, I moved into this house in 2018 and the shower did not work. Well, it did work, but it leaked all the way through. And so the water would come down into the kitchen, which is not where you want your shower water to go.
Pause. You just said wooder. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Continue.
All right. Thank you. So we have not used the shower since 2018.
Right.
Okay. And my mother was convinced that when I told her it was going to cost $12,000 to fix it, she thought I said $1,200. And she was like, I don't know why you just don't fix the shower. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of cash. And she was like, you guys have gone to Disney World twice. Mom.
You're like, no.
$12,000.
Right.
Oh, I thought it was just $1,200. No. We had to rip the whole thing out and build it all brand new. And
awful.
of course, since COVID and all of these supply chain, blah, 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 like it was way more than $12,000 to do this project. However, I can now shower in the bathroom attached to my bedroom.
Yay!
I do not have to get out of the shower, put on my little flippy floppies, and get my basket full of shower materials like I live in the dorm.
Oh, man.
I mean, I was showering down the hall or downstairs, which I recognize is a privilege.
Yes, sure.
100% recognize that that is a thing.
Yes.
But I'm showering my own bathroom now. It's amazing.
I mean, it's the little things, right? It is.
Right.
I get it. I totally get it.
This is not my obsession, but it is Abigail's.
Oh, okay.
Abby is currently obsessed with Making It Big from the Tasty Network. That's like a friend of BuzzFeed. He makes foods in a giant size. So like a 50-pound stack of pancakes or a 10-layer birthday cake.
Gluttony.
Yes.
It is entertaining, if nothing else, right? So my obsession is this pillow spray that I got from my Birchbox subscription. I am not sponsored by Birchbox, but I would not mind being sponsored by Birchbox. So if by some miracle someone there hears this, please reach out to me. But this stuff is called This Works, or that's the name of the company. It's a female-founded company, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's called Stress Check Sleep Spray. And it's got like lavender oil, chamomile, and patchouli oils in it. And I sprayed it on my pillow the other night, and I'm telling you, I knocked out so fast. Like, usually it takes me a little while to calm my brain down, take some deep breaths and mellow out. And I was able to roll over and fall right to sleep. So I don't know if it was the spray or that night, but I'm going to continue my experiment tonight, and I'll let you know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You should know, those of you who don't have a video feed, Cappy is raising his hand to be called on. He says, I am podcasting with two teachers.
I'm going to raise my hand. Exactly.
I sort of know how to maneuver here. I just have one question.
Yeah.
So you fellas, was this the same night Sam asked you about your drinking?
No, that was tonight.
Oh, yikes. Before the show.
That was before the show. That was tonight. No, when I first tried the sleep spray, that was 2 nights ago. And then I did it again last night.
Just
And
in the interest of fairness, I wanted people to.
Okay, so let's get on with the rest of our show. So you've heard him talking already. It's Cappy. He's my father-in-law. He is the voice of the Round Rock Express, which is the minor league team that plays baseball here in Austin. Well, not Austin, technically Round Rock. They are the Round Rock Express. And Jenny told you guys last week what they're named for. Jenny, can you tell them again?
They're named after the Ryan Express, Nolan Ryan, the greatest pitcher of all time, the one who threw 7 no-hitters and has more strikeouts than any other major league pitcher.
What the hell am I doing here talking baseball? You already know all the answers.
And Cappy, her dog's name is Bagwell.
Why don't you just name Jeff and be done with it?
Because it's a girl.
It's a girl.
Why didn't you name him Biggio?
If we get another dog, this is the name. We'll have the killer bees.
Yikes. And I'm supposed to try to come across this minefield, right? Oh, no.
So we have Cappy here to talk about baseball with us because last week we talked all about vocabulary and I gave you guys a rundown on important baseball vocabulary terms. So our hope is that whatever Cappy talks to us today, you'll be able to understand. So Cappy, we're going to go ahead and get started and have you explain some baseball things to our listeners. Are you ready?
Yeah, let me just up front put a little asterisk by this.
Go for it.
There's an asterisk next to our whole show.
I am not fully responsible for answers I may come up with when I feel as if I've been backed into a corner.
That's fine. If you feel like your answer is not what you want it to be, we totally understand. That's regular on this show.
Well, Caitlin, you know me well enough to know if I'm in a corner, I'm coming out. So
well, and I'll help you out. Don't worry about that.
Okay, I have no worries about this at all.
Good. I do want to start with just some baseball basics. So can you walk us through an inning from top to bottom?
Oh, Caitlin, there's 500 different things that can happen in a half inning. I'll just give you, for instance.
Sure.
My wife, Karen, and I went to a Texas League playoff game in Corpus Christi about 8 years ago.
Okay.
We walk in, sit down, get our beers. We take 2 sips, and the Tulsa pitcher immediately walks 6 straight batters.
Yuck.
Why didn't they pull him?
Well, because there's about 1,700 other reasons that they didn't, because he was a prospect and they wanted him to work out of a jam, even though it was a playoffs. But Karen says to me, "You've told me there were a lot of differences between AAA, where you work, and AA." And I said, "This is one big difference." So, I mean, there's a lot of different factors when you start talking about how does an inning work itself. The opposing pitcher may have a tweaked elbow. He may give up 2-3 runs. Maybe he's battling and doesn't have anything wrong with him, and the hitters come out and they're smoking it, and you pick up 4 or 5 runs. We've actually had 12 runs scored on us in a first inning before at round 5 years ago.
Yuck.
We've also scored 14 runs in a first inning before. Look at it like this. Baseball, more than any other sport, is unpredictable. You can pretty much forecast when you look at an NFL team or a college team, you know a little bit about them. The same thing with an NBA or collegiate basketball team. You know what they're likely to do in any kind of situation. At the AAA level, guys are battling to get to the big leagues, and they will do anything they can to make that happen. That's what makes it so attractive, because when you sit down with your beer at any ballpark, or even if Sammy's with you and he's going to start questioning your drinking, you're drinking a Coke, well, that you still can't forecast it. And that's what's so fun about calling it.
That's one of the things I love about this game.
Yes, absolutely. If you have a college football team or college basketball team and they have a couple of their guys injured, you know there's going to be some holes in the defense or offense that the other team is going to exploit. Here, we move guys up and down between the big leagues regularly. We have 175 to 200 moves, moving guys back and forth every year. But the guys they replace them with are really good baseball players. You got to remember, there are only 700 people playing in the big leagues, and in the history of Major League Baseball, only 21,000 men have ever played that game. 150 years, 21,000. Think about that.
That is a fun number. I mean,
Yeah, I had
low,
no
but
idea it was that
It's
low.
crazy. It's elite. We're talking elite of the elite. That's why there's such a struggle to get there. That's why there's such a struggle to stay, for crying out loud. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
right?
All right. So we've got some just basics. And some of these are going to be your opinions. Okay.
Good.
How do you feel about the minimum batter rule?
They're trying their best to speed up the game. I think the minimum batter rule really was well thought out. Most long-time, old-time baseball guys didn't like it. Major League Baseball is trying its best to speed up games. Well, if you want to speed up games, make the umpires call the strike zone. Make the batters stay in there when they get up to hit. We played 3 4-hour games last year for 9 innings because umpires can't keep a straight strike zone. So we're going to get robot umpires in AAA this year. The umpires at behind home plate will hear the call, and he makes the call, and then he makes regular calls around home plate when there's a guy sliding in and all that kind of thing. I can sit there and call a game for 4 hours and not be bored. Most people can't sit and watch one, and I understand that. That's because nothing is moving. You ever notice nobody puts a bunt down the opposite direction and can end up at second base? Are we trying to win the damn game or what? You know what I mean? Nobody's there. There's a place you can put the ball down, for God's sake. Put it down. Get on base. You know what? Most of those guys that are up there in those situations are really fast. They can either end up at second base in a situation like that, or they can steal second base. And guess what? Somebody hits a little duck snort to center field, and boom, the fast guy scores, and you get the lead. How smart is that? This is not this is not like figuring out war strategy or how an atom bomb works. It's really pretty simple. Get on base and score runs.
Right.
You need runs.
Right. You're reminding me of that line in Bull Durham. You throw the ball, you catch the ball, you hit the ball. Just that beautiful, easy description of that game.
Right.
It is the best description you can give of what I'm talking about here.
So, real quick, because I asked that question without actually knowing or making sure our listeners know what the minimum batter rule is. What is that?
When a relief pitcher comes into a game,
Mm-hmm.
a pitcher at the major league level now has to face 3 batters at least before he can come out of a game. Used to see situational lefties, sinker ball righties come in to face a guy who may have a weakness against a left-hander or a weakness against a sinker ball pitcher. Not so much anymore. They're still doing that. And I don't have a particular problem with that. And I've heard interviews, and on purpose because of being on here, I went online today and heard 2 or 3 interviews with major league pitchers who were involved in that. And they say, you know what? It's a challenge. We're not just one hitter pitchers.
Right.
We got to prove to our bosses we can go further than an inning or 2. Well, that's pretty smart. And it's pretty right, too, to be honest with you. And not to single anybody out, but when Nolan Ryan came through, you were not doing your job if you didn't finish a game.
Yeah. We didn't have this middle reliever kind of situation.
Well,
no.
exactly right. Just go back and look at look up some of the great pitchers from probably 1970 back, and look at how many complete games they threw. It's incredible. And look at how many complete games they throw now. We're not challenging young pitchers to be better than they thought they could be. Oh, he's thrown 100 pitches. We know that the third time he comes through the order, he's going to get lit up. If you tell a kid that, guess what? He's going to believe it because
Right.
you know what? You're the boss.
So you said that you could call a game for 4 hours, no problem. What position is your favorite to watch play?
You know, that is a very tough question because I was a center fielder in college and I played shortstop and pitched in high school. And I think because of that, I appreciate talent at all positions. I really, really do because each person has a little bit of a different job.
Exactly.
One of the great things about some grinders is they play multiple positions because they know they'll stick because they're valuable because you can stick them in at any position and they'll be fine. So to narrow it down, it depends on who's going well during a night. I'm not one of these guys who, if one of our guys has a no hitter going, for instance, I'm talking about it. They got this jinx down on the. You don't talk about no hitter if you're on the bench, and I'm talking about it because that's rare.
It's funny that you would bring that up. We told our listeners last week, don't talk about the no-hitter.
Well, but let me tell you something. Talk about it because it's rare. And here's the other thing about it. I'm not doing my listeners any service at all. In fact, it's a disservice because you're going, what a dummy cap he is. He can't even figure out there's a no hitter. Well, you know, I have enough of an ego to say, I'm talking about the no hitter.
I'm talking about it. Yeah.
End of the day, you got to honor talent no matter what position it is. And I'm not trying to blow off your question, Jenny, but the bottom line is it's a magnificent game played when it's played well. Talent just absolutely has to be honored.
Yeah, and I loved what you said about how everyone has a different job. Everybody has to have a unique skill set.
Right.
I love watching the outfielders because they are so athletic. They are running all over while, they're not throwing 90-mile-an-hour fastballs. They have to have an arm to get the ball back in 200-300 feet.
You should do some research and see how many outfielders could throw at 93, 94 as pitchers in high school. It's amazing how many there are.
That's interesting.
That's a really interesting fact.
You're on the right track about that. Come on, you got 1 or 2 more in you?
Yeah, we got a few more in us. We just talked about a superstition. No talking about no hitters. Now it's different for you. You are a radio caller. If you don't talk about it, your listeners are going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other superstitions in baseball. It's just part of the game at this point. So tell me, do you have a favorite tradition or a favorite superstition or a favorite baseball myth that you can share with our listeners?
You want to know what mine was when I played in college?
Oh, yeah.
I was a big fan of the way the Dodgers dressed. And the Dodgers, in their manual, have a specific way to this day that they dress. They turn their pants inside out. They have those stirrup hose. They either tape them or they have them tied in between their knee and their calf. They put their pants on, and if you've put them up the right way, it'll make a nice crease right below the knee, and it looks sharp. Go back and look at the Dodgers from like 1962, 63, all the way to now. Some of them are allowed to wear their pants down to their shoes, and you look like you're wearing sleepers when you're on the field. And so people would look at me in the clubhouse before we go out and play in college, and they go, "What are you doing wearing your pants backwards?" I said, "Listen, moron, they're not going to be on backward. I'm trying to bring them up so they look sharp." Guys who did that still show up for reunions at Dell Diamond, and they're going to be out there on the 22nd and 23rd of April. So we're excited about seeing them all.
So my dad was in the military growing up.
Yeah.
And when he would wear the BDUs, the camo uniform, they had to do that with the pants. And they had these elastic bands that they would put around the pant to hold it so that you would get that nice crease. My dad would come home after a day in uniform and use a hairbrush on his leg to get the feeling back because the elastic band had been so tight all day long.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting because it's wonder he didn't get jaundice in his feet and knees, or his legs rot off.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So he'd be sitting there on the edge of the bed, scrubbing his leg with a hairbrush, just trying to get the feeling back.
Did you guys ever ask him if he was drinking too much?
Oh, I'm sure. There were 3 of us.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, we talked about, you said baseball is in a difficult place. What do you see Major League Baseball doing to come back to the forefront on a national stage?
They got to get real. And we talked about this in my book. There's an 87-year-old black fellow who played in the Jim Crow South, and he's hugely recognized in the game now. And his idea is this: baseball needs to go into the inner cities and bring back black athletes in droves, because they need to understand that the length of a career in big league or minor league baseball or baseball in general is way longer than in football or basketball. It just is. Crushing blows football guys suffer.
Right.
And the knee injuries and ankle injuries and back injuries that basketball players suffer. And so if you just look at the numbers and the years, you're going to make more money. You're going to have more of an opportunity. And there's some beautiful black athletes that really would be much more benefited if they played baseball rather than the other two. And that's his point. And he thinks that Major League Baseball, and they've begun to do this a little bit. And I was talking to a guy from Major League Baseball the other day who was here for some kind of seminar. We went out to lunch and we're talking about this. And he said, we got to do this. We really have to get into the inner cities and bring these kids back and explain to them very simply how much better a life in our game is than the other two. That's where it starts. And to do that, you have to open up more scholarship opportunities at all levels in college. And you have to give them an incentive to want to do it and want to love it. And I just think you have to start this thing when they're 3 and 4 years old. I mean, I was dragged out to the backyard when I was 4 years old by my grandfather, who was a Pittsburgh Pirates prospect until he lost hearing in his left ear in World War I. But he just gave me the game. And then my dad picked that up, and then my dad passed away, and my grandfather picked it back up again. And until the day he died, he was excited about the fact that I wanted to go with him to the ballpark. And he came to every semi-pro game I played, every college game I played, and just doted on it. And it's parent involvement, and we see that. And I'm so glad that my grandsons are involved. They love it, and we'll see where it goes.
I did like that you brought up that there probably need to be some scholarship opportunities. Baseball can be an expensive sport at a young age. I mean, just thinking about buying Sam cleats every year because the season only lasts so long and he's growing so fast that, you know what I mean? There are some things that do need to happen in order to address that issue with younger players and diversity. But that's an interesting point. I hadn't heard about that.
No doubt. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, John just bought a new glove and the first number was a 4.
Oof.
Wait till you get to the first number is a 1. I have a grandson that pitches, and he's a 7th grader, and he's 6'1" already, and it comes very easily out of his hand. And baseball people know that's pretty special. And he just pisses me off because he reminds me so much of me as a 7th grader.
Okay, so baseball, a lot of people don't necessarily care about the game until they learn a little something about it. They need that connection. So what advice would you give to someone who's going to their first game?
I would say to somebody who's interested in becoming interested in it, go to a game, whether it's a high school game, a college game, or out at Dell Diamond. Buy yourself a ticket and just sit and ponder it. Feel the southerly breeze blowing through the ballpark. Watch the crowd, see how they intermingle. Watch how the pitcher-catcher combo works, how the outfield shifts to directions. Just sit there and watch, because it'll wash over you if you let it. If you come in with an open mind and a calm mind, it's so different from the frenetic pace of an NFL game or college game. And you know what? In this country right now, as much hate as there is and as much angst as there is, everywhere you look, baseball can redeem itself, bringing people out the ballpark and say, hey, sit back and relax and enjoy this. Have a couple beers and see how you like it. Come 3-4 times before you make your judgment and just hang with them that way. I think that's the best way to do it.
I love that you called out going to a high school or college game.
Oh,
it's
sure.
An affordable way. It's an affordable way to have the experience. everybody who's there wants to be there.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And so there really is a lot of spirit living at a high school or a college ball
Yep,
game.
no doubt. No doubt.
And I'll say the same thing about a single or double A game, right?
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
something special about watching those boys play.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
All
mean,
right.
just thinking about myself in terms of my own enjoyment of the sport, I would say that it used to be that watching it on TV was an absolute no thank you, please. Like I couldn't do it. But then
I can't do it.
yeah, I mean, just going to a bunch of games now. I mean, I started going to baseball games at Candlestick in San Francisco in that freezing cold.
Wear your jacket.
Oh yeah, going then and watching Barry Bonds as a kid was very cool. And then I kind of fell out of it, but meeting my husband and his love of the game and us going to games together and having a relaxing evening at the park has made me enjoy watching it on television again. But you're right that it does come from knowing what that experience is at the park and having that to draw on to really make it be an enjoyable experience.
And Kate, you know what you really have to do with this? You really have to condition your mind when you walk in to just turn the world off and just disappear for 2 or 3 hours. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing.
Absolutely not. Not especially right now when I think people need an escape. And if you do go to a game, it's an outdoor activity. It's going to be, for most people, right? It's going to be a safe activity in terms of COVID, in terms of getting some fresh air for yourself and just having an experience outside of the house. I feel like now's as good a time as any to escape for a little while and just hear the lull of the park.
Pick out 2 or 3 guys to follow. You can follow their careers daily. There's so much information about all of these guys and see where they go, see what they do. It's amazing.
Yeah, or just one team. Just start with one team.
Sure.
And get a sense of what they're doing. Maybe, again, and going to a player, look on some profiles and see if there's one player whose story kind of grabs you and see and follow that person and see what's going on. I love that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make it less overwhelming too, because there's a lot that you could get bogged down in. I mean, the vocabulary that we talked about last week, a lot of it was statistics based. And if you're trying to understand all of that right away, it's not going to be enjoyable. So if you just sit back and
exactly right.
sort of pay attention to one person or one team, and it can become an enjoyable experience for you for sure.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So you brought up your book, and can you share a little bit about what the book is about?
That's great. It's Grinders, Baseball's Intrepid Infantry. We have 44 profiles of guys who played off and on in the big leagues. Very few of them were ever thought to be by scouts early on something special. 2 or 3 were. We have a profile of a fellow who played 20 years in the big leagues, hit 274 home runs, and he couldn't make his varsity team his junior year. He barely made it his senior year. He went to junior college and went 1 for 3. His big job in junior college was just putting the numbers up on the scoreboard out in center field whenever somebody scored a run. And yet he was drafted because his summer league coach was a part-time scout with the White Sox, and this guy ends up playing 22 years.
Jeez.
He just refused to be told no. Don't we need more of that in this country? And I make the analogy in this book in the introduction because my grandfather had a huge role in this. Long story short, you refuse to quit. Okay, so who are grinders in society? Well, let's think about this. Single parents working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to keep it going. Small business owner, or just let's just say you're not the CEO of your corporation, but you're on the second or third level of management, and you'll change your week from 40 to 60 hours because you love it. That's what a grinder is. That's the way to explain it, the best way I know how. And when you see it on the baseball field, it's so incredible. And I did 2 years of solid research before I decided to write this thing. Kate knows this story. I was just blown away. I had a whole lot of people helping me look. Nobody's ever written about this. Everybody wants to write about the stars. Everybody wants to write about
Right.
all the big time guys, but nobody talks about the middle of the road guys who are just out there battling it every single day. That's what we all do. That's what you guys do as teachers. You're grinding every day, every single day. There's a grind situation comes up. There's no way to deny it. I have a wonderful daughter-in-law, and she absolutely is eager to share information. And I hear this stuff. It's so American in so many ways, and yet people tend to take these folks for granted. I have a story of a catcher who turned pitcher because they had nobody else to throw, and he tells the pitching coach, who calls down to the bullpen, "Yeah, I pitched before." He never pitched in his life. He goes in and gets out and he pitches a 1-2-3 first inning. He is one of the biggest whack jobs I've ever met and one of the greatest kids I've ever met. And it's chock full of stories like this. It's crazy, crazy. And it's a blessing to have a chance to do this and get it out. And we're in the final stages of it right now.
It sounds like a fun read and something that you can pick up and put down at your leisure.
Yes, absolutely. And we have maybe 3 more books out of this in terms of different grinders and different
Stories.
grinders' wives, for instance. Oh my God, the stories there. I mean, they're left at home with kids.
Right.
Eh,
For 22 years.
yes. The guy who is the quote unquote co-author passed away the last day of our season, this last season,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
and his wife passed away yesterday.
Mm.
And I had to rip out the memorial to him and add hers to it. But she was such a grinder. I mean, my God, he'd go off, leave her with her 2 sons. She was a teacher, by the way. And what a wonderful life they lived. And he was a stud at the University of Texas in the early '60s, and still holds one of the lowest ERAs ever at the College World Series to this day.
Wow.
I mean, there's so much of this. There's so much more to this than just, Bryce Harper hits a home run that goes 500 feet and then he punches a catcher. Okay, that's good. What else does he do with his hundreds of millions of dollars?
He has some great hair.
And shoe lines. His shoes are really cool too.
Thank you both for proving my point here.
Right.
You guys just absolutely threw me a hanging curveball that I got to hit about 450 feet.
Right. Which is where I went on purpose.
Right.
So I don't know if you've read it, but Virginia Grohl, who is Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters' mom, wrote a book called Cradle to Stage. And it's all about interviews she did with rock stars' moms.
Yep.
And it sounds like it would be a great fuel for your grinders' wives and kids' stories.
Oh my Lord. There's one of the guys lives up in Liberty Hill, and his wife is unbelievable. She moved the family not only to Japan, but to Korea as well.
Wow.
He is the only manager who's won championships in Korea and in Japan. The stories she tells about moving her family back and forth between Japan, Korea, and the States, they're unbelievable. I'm really blessed to be able to do something like this, to have written something like this, because this is my second book, and the other one it took me 84 days to write, and this has taken 4 years. So it's more a part of me than the first one was, I have to say.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to put my hands on it. And
mid-July at the All-Star break, it'll be out.
That's
awesome.
Wonderful. I'm so glad it's coming out. That's a great time of year too.
It is. It is. It's
launch.
Am I off the clock? Are we done?
Yeah, I was about to say thank you so much for coming. This was so fun.
Good.
I hope that you have a fantastic season. Thanks again for making time for us. And we cannot wait to get our hands on your book.
Well, we're pedaling this tricycle as fast as we can go.
And tell us the name of the book one more time.
It's called Grinders, Baseball's Intrepid Infantry, and it is published by Stony Creek Publishing. You can go online and see a little blurb of it, and it'll be in Barnes and Nobles, and we're working with some other places as well, and you'll always be able to get it online.
That's great. Well, I'll go ahead and link in our show notes so that our listeners can take a peek. And I think we're good. So, Cappy, thank you so much again. Mike Capps, the book is called Grinders, and we'll have a link to it in the show notes. And thank you so much for being with us today.
I love you, Katie. Talk to you soon.
Love you too. Yeah.
All right. Well, whether you are strolling through the sports section at Barnes and Noble, or you are trying to decide between peanuts, popcorn, or Cracker Jack, make good choices.
And take me out to the ball game. Bye.
Bye.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to the CK and GK podcast. Find us at CK and GK podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that you pod. See you next time.